All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome to my homily for the 21st Sunday of Ordinary Time. In our gospel today, the disciples ask Jesus, "Will only a few be saved?" And thank goodness, Jesus does not directly answer the question. Instead, he almost answers a different question. Because he says, in response to that question, "Strive to enter by the narrow gate, for many will try, but will not be strong enough." So it's almost like he's answering the question, how will we be saved, instead of how many will be saved. And the answer to the question that Jesus actually is interested in is quite clear. Salvation is not achieved by following the crowd. That's the broad road, so to speak. So once again, we have Jesus teaching his disciples by way of imagery. He doesn't provide a by-the-numbers instruction manual style lesson. Insert rod A to slot B, attached to part D, final product, salvation. That's more or less the kind of lesson the disciples were hoping for, and Jesus does not provide that. Instead, he talks about this narrow gate to conjure up this mental image in the minds of the people. So here's the thing about the narrow way that leads to the narrow gate. It requires thought, concentration, and awareness. You can go down the broad road pretty brainlessly. Just follow the folks in front of you. I think of finishing up my shifts at the beer tent at Summerfest this earlier this summer, walking back to those massive exit gates of Summerfest, along with the thousands of other people returning to their cars. That was the broad way. I was not particularly thinking about where I was or where I was going. I was just following the crowd. And Jesus correctly teaches that there is next to no spiritual value in living your life that way. That is not what salvation looks like. By contrast, the most literal narrow road I went down was going down the Rock of Gibraltar. So a few years ago, I was on vacation in Spain, and I decided to take a one-day detour to explore the territory of Gibraltar. And yes, by the way, one day is more than enough to literally explore the entire territory. And my big goal was to climb the Rock of Gibraltar and get to the highest point that a tourist is allowed to go. Because the Rock of Gibraltar is like a tiny national park almost. So, I went there, I was decked in my cassock with my satchel at my side, not a man purse, a satchel. And I made a day of it, just a priest on the Rock of Gibraltar. And I entered through the broad road, the main gate, basically, like everybody else. And when you're on the Rock of Gibraltar, for the most part, you're on a paved road, big enough for one car or maybe two golf carts to conveniently pass each other. So although it's obviously a tall climb, it's actually not very difficult. It's clearly meant to be a tourist accessible thing. So I enjoy the sights, I walk, I explore, I have lunch at the Visitor Center Cafe about halfway up the rock. Nice day. And when it was time to go back down around 3 o'clock, wouldn't you know it, I chose to go down the narrow way. It turned out that there was a little side path, a little footpath that snaked all the way down the eastern side of the cliff. And it wasn't particularly dangerous or anything. You didn't have to be like a rock climber or anything, but it was a significantly more difficult path. And because you were zigzagging down the cliff, you never really knew how far you'd gone or how far you had left to go. In fact, a couple of times I thought that I might have wandered off the intended path until I passed people going up the narrow way. So they're like, are we going the right way? I'm like, yes, you're going the right way. Am I on the right way? Yeah, you're on the right way. It was always funny to have a couple of encounters like that to just boost our confidence that we were, in fact, not lost. So here's the thing. Here's what was great about that walk. I was fully present in what I was doing. I had to pay attention to every step I took. So I enjoyed my surroundings. I had to think about where I was going and what hazards were likely in front of me. And it turned out to be just an absolutely wonderful 45 minutes of my life. And when I finally got to the bottom, I was just filled with joy as I looked up, and I could see just how far I had traveled that afternoon. That journey, that walk, is a very appropriate metaphor for salvation. What is the journey of salvation? It's paying attention to your life and the decisions you make in your life every day. Rather than blindly following the crowd, it's choosing to move forward one step at a time. It means recognizing that there is at least some danger around you if you are not careful, and it means knowing that there is a true path to your ultimate destination, but there are also side paths that may lead to dead ends, or even worse, go back to where you started. And of course, with the journey of salvation, when you've made it the whole way, you will be able to look back and recognize that you have accomplished something special. The broad road doesn't really offer that. Not the way the narrow way does, leading to the narrow gate. So as my final word of remark today, I just want you to remember that there is no limit to the amount of people who can walk the narrow way. The difference between the narrow way and the broad road, it's not a matter of numbers. That's why Jesus didn't answer that question at the beginning. There is room for all on the narrow way. The difference is that one is a journey with intentionality and purpose. The other is wandering zombie-like through life in whatever direction happens to be easiest at the moment. Far too many people live their lives that way. When Jesus teaches us that we are meant to strive toward a spiritual destination, that means one clear direction. That road is never going to be the easiest one, but it will be the most rewarding one. And we can have confidence in that, for Christ is not only a mere guide, but he is the way and the truth and the life.